Hi, hello. Let's do some more of The Secret Garden by Frances Hodgson Burnett. Tonight we are reading chapter 22, When the Sun Went Down. Get yourself comfy and cosy, get yourself a little drink and a little snack, or a big drink and a big snack. Although it is only a short chapter, so it's up to you. I'll leave the choice to you. I'll see you back here in like half a second. When his head was out of sight, Colin turned to Mary. "Go and meet him," he said, and Mary flew across the grass to the door under the ivy. Dickon was watching him with sharp eyes. There were scarlet spots on his cheeks and he looked amazing, but he showed no signs of falling. "I can stand," he said, and his head was still held up and he said it quite grandly. "I told thee that could as soon as thou stopped being afraid," answered Dickon, "and thou stopped." "Yes, I've stopped," said Colin. Then suddenly he remembered something Mary had said. "Are you making magic, Dickon?" he asked sharply. Dickon's curly mouth spread into a cheerful grin. "Thou's doing magic thyself. It's same magic as made these here work out earth," and he touched with his thick boot a clump of crocuses in the grass. Colin looked down at him. "Aye," he said slowly, "there couldna be bigger magic than that there. There couldna be." He drew himself up straighter than ever. "I'm now going to walk to that tree," he said, pointing to one a few feet away from him. "I'm going to be standing when Weatherstaff comes in here. I can rest against the tree if I like, but when I want to sit down, I will sit down, but not before. Bring a rug from the chair, please." He walked to the tree, and though Dickon held his arm, he was wonderfully steady. When he stood against the tree trunk, it was not too plain that he supported himself against it, and he still held himself so straight that he looked tall. When Ben Weatherstaff came through the door in the wall, he saw him standing there, and he heard Mary muttering something under her breath. "What art saying?" he asked rather testily, because he did not want his attention distracted from the long, thin, straight boy figure and proud face. But she did not tell him. What she was saying was this: "You can do it. You can do it. I told you you could. You can do it. You can do it. You can do it." She was saying it to Colin because she wanted to make magic and keep him on his feet looking like that. She could not bear that he should give in before Ben Weatherstaff, and he did not give in. He was uplifted by a sudden feeling, and he looked quite beautiful in spite of this thinness. He fixed his eyes on Ben Weatherstaff in his funny, imperious way. "Look at me," he commanded. "Look at me all over. Am I a hunchback? Have I got crooked legs?" Ben Weatherstaff had not quite got over his emotion, but he had recovered a little and answered almost in his usual way. "Not that," he said. "Not that. Not of the sort. What's thou been doing with herself? Hiding out of sight and letting folk think thou were cripple and half-witted." "Half-witted?" said Colin angrily. "Who thought that?" "Lots of fools," said Ben. "The world's full of jackasses, braying, and they never bray naught but lies. What did thou shut thyself up for?" "Everyone thought I was going to die," said Colin shortly. "I'm not." And he said it with such decision, Ben Weatherstaff looked him over, up and down and up. "Tha'd die?" he said with dry exultation. "Nowt o' sort. Thou's got too much pluck in thee. When I seed thee put thy legs on ground in such an hurry, I knowed thou was all right. Sit thee down on thy rug a bit, young mester. Give me my orders." There was a strange mixture of crabbed tenderness and shrewd understanding in his manner. Mary had poured out speech as rapidly as she could as they had come down the long walk. The chief thing to be remembered, she had told him, was that Colin was getting well. The garden was doing it. No one must let him remember about having humps and dying. The Rajah condescended to seat himself on a rug under the tree. "What work do you do in these gardens, Weatherstaff?" he inquired. "Anything I'm told to do," answered old Ben. "I'm kept up on favour, because she liked me." "She?" asked Colin. "Thy mother," answered Ben Weatherstaff. My mother?" said Colin, and he looked about him quietly. This was her garden, wasn't it? "Aye, it was that," said Ben Weatherstaff, and he looked around him as well. "She were main fond of it." "Well, it is my garden now, Ben Weatherstaff, and I am fond of it. I shall come here every day, but it is to be a secret. My orders are that no one is to know that we come here. Dickon and my cousin have worked and made it come alive. I shall send for you sometimes to help, but you must come when no one can see you." Ben Weatherstaff's face twisted itself into a dry old smile. "I've come here before when no one see me," he said. "What?" exclaimed Colin. "When did you do that?" "The last time I were here," he said, rubbing his chin and looking round, "were about 2 year ago." "But no one has been in it for 10 years, cried Colin. "There was no door." "I'm no one," said old Ben dryly, "and I didn't come through door, I came over t' wall. The rheumatics held me back the last 2 year. Tha come and did a bit of the pruning," said Dickon. "I couldn't make out how it had been done." "Oh, she was so fond of it, she were," said Ben Weatherstaff slowly. "And she was such a pretty young thing. She says to me once, 'Ben,' she says, laughing, 'if ever I'm ill, or if I go away, you must take care of my roses.' When she did go away, the orders was that no one was ever to come nigh. But I come," he said with grumpy obstinacy. "Over t' wall I came, until rheumatics stopped me, and I did a bit of work once a year. She'd gave her order first." "It wouldn't have been as wick as if as it is if they hadn't done it," said Dickon. "I did fair wonder." "I'm glad you did come in, Weatherstaff," said Colin. "You'll know how to keep this a secret." "Aye, I'll know that, sir," answered Ben, "and it'll be easier for a man with rheumatics to come in through a door." On the grass near the tree, Mary had dropped her trowel. Colin stretched out his hand and took it up. An odd expression came into his face as he began to scratch at the earth. His thin hand was weak enough, but presently, as they watched him, Mary, with quite breathless interest, he drove the end of the trowel into the soil and turned some of it over. "You can do it, you can do it, you can do it," said Mary to herself. "I tell you, you can do it." Dickon's round eyes were full of eager curiousness, but he had not said a word. Ben Weatherstaff looked on with interested face. Colin persevered. After he had turned a few trowelfuls of soil, he spoke exultantly to Dickon in his best Yorkshire. "Thou said as thou'd have me walking about here same as other folk, and thou said thou'd have me digging. I thought thou was just leeing to please me. This is only the first day, and I've walked, and here I am digging." Ben Weatherstaff's mouth fell open again when he heard him, but he ended up chuckling. "Eh, that sounds as if thou's got wits enough. Thou'rt a Yorkshire lad for sure, and thou'rt digging too, and thou like to plant a bit of something. I can get thee a rose in a pot." "Go and get it," said Colin, digging excitedly. "Quick, quick!" It was done quickly enough indeed. Ben Weatherstaff went his way forgetting rheumatics. Dickon took his spade and dug the hole deeper and wider than a new digger with thin hands could make it. Mary slipped out to run and bring back a watering can. When Dickon had deepened the hole, Colin went on turning the earth over and over. He looked up at the sky, flushed and glowing with a strangely new exercise, slight as it was. "I want to do it before the sun goes quite down," he said. Mary thought that perhaps the sun held back a few minutes just on purpose. Ben Weatherstaff brought the rose in its pot from the greenhouse. He hobbled over the grass as fast as he could. He'd begun to be excited too. He knelt down by the hole and broke the pot from the mould. "Here, lad, set it in earth ourself, same as the king does when he goes to a new place." The thin white hands shook a little, and Colin's flush grew deeper as he set the rose in the mould and held it whilst old Ben made firm the earth. It was filled in and pressed down and made steady. Mary was leaning forward on her hands and knees. Soot had flown down and marched forward to see what was being done. Nut and Shell chattered about it from the cherry tree. "It's planted," said Colin at last, "and the sun is only slipping over the hedge. Help me up, Dickon. I want to be standing when it goes. That is part of the magic." And Dickon helped him, and the magic, or whatever it was, so gave him strength that when the sun did slip over the edge and end the strange, lovely afternoon for them, there he actually stood on his own 2 feet, laughing. And there you go. That's the end of that chapter. It was a quick one, wasn't it? The next chapter is called Magic, and the next chapter is long. So we'll do that. How are you? I hope you're all okay. This weather in the background here is no more for us. Gosh, if you're watching this in the future, then you may well be watching it, and your garden might well look as flowery and green and bright as this, but actually is pouring down with rain. I'm recording this in October. It's grey and rainy outside for me. Brrr. Gosh. But yeah, that's about as exciting as I can report at the moment. Let's think what else. I have been cataloguing all of my books recently. So some of you who were with me on the old channel might know that I collected so many books. Oh my goodness. I literally had to put, well, they were in my room, they were in my children's room, they were downstairs. There was books everywhere. And they were like those lovely old stinky books. Oof, they absolutely, like, they were foisty and they were damp, but they were lovely and old. But unfortunately I had to get rid of them. So I've kind of started to build up my collection again. I have to keep them hidden up in a box under my, or box or 7, underneath my bed, and I've got a shelf over there which is absolutely stacked with books, like to the point that you can't even see what books are on there anymore because they're stacked so tight and like kind of 3 deep. So there's a lot of books in here, but I've been cataloguing them all, and using ChatGPT. Other AI things are available, but that's what I've been using. And it, like, just by taking a photo of the front cover, and it just is catalogued them, and it's kind of put them into different, inverted commas, shelves for me and everything. It's a little like, and I said, what can you tell about me by the books I've got? It was quite astute, shall we say? So yeah. So that's what I've been doing recently. I'm currently, I finished A Bad Spell in Yurt with old was it not Dimberg? Who's Dimberg? With what was his name? Dimebert, not Dimberg, Dimebert. So do you know what? You have my recommendation there. If you want to read a good book about a wizard in a castle, go for a Bad Spell in Yurt. I haven't got it up here anymore. I think it might be in the kids' room or something. But yeah, letter C, Dale, Britain. I recommend it. It's good. It was a good read, and I really enjoyed it all the way through. So I thought I'd pick up something light. So I've started reading Narnia again now, and I also do non-fiction at the same time. Although I haven't got a non-fiction book on the go at the moment. I keep looking down here because my piles of non-fiction books are just down here underneath my window. So I'll find a non-fiction book to read at the same time, which is always exciting. Narnia, I am currently reading this one, The Magician's Nephew. That's what I'm doing at the moment. So yeah, just started at the very beginning again, just for something light and easy. So yeah, it's after reading A Bad Spell in Yurt, though, going straight to Narnia was a little bit too Jolly Hockey Sticks. It was like, whoa, okay, because it wasn't Jolly Hockey Sticks for Dimebert. He spoke in a way that I am happy with. But here, with the old Narnia, we're in the attic at the moment, holding the rings, or just about to hold the rings. And, yeah, two Jolly Hockey Sticks. But it's okay. My brain will move to that kind of language and it'll be all right again soon. Anything else I can tell you? I don't think there is. I'll tell you what, it is my final week at work for this half term, and then I get 1 week off, and then we go back after that week. It'll be November by then, and it will be the Christmas half term. Oh, what? How is that here already? So yeah, this half term has been a long one. Normally they're about 6 or 7 weeks long. This one's been just that extra 1 week, so it's been 8 weeks long. Poof, can I feel it? The kids can feel it too. Everybody is just ready for a holiday, if you catch my meaning. So, yeah, there's that. Anyway, I'll catch you soon for our long chapter. I'll see you then. Be ready.